Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams, and with me, my partner in crime, Chris King. Chris, of course, is Winners and Winers chief parlay expert. And how about the weekend, Chris? How was your weekend this weekend?
I guess it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it from a betting perspective, it probably went pretty well. If you look at it from a fan perspective, well, the Bills failed to show up yesterday, and that was very disappointing. They were absolutely destroyed by the Colts. Jonathan Taylor made Al Bundy feel jealous with 5 touchdowns instead of just 4.
Right.
Somewhere, Polk High is wishing they had Jonathan Taylor.
I'm sure, but so what do you think is of tonight? We got a whole bunch of stuff tonight to get to, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, you've got college basketball, you got the NBA, you got the NHL. Oh yeah, by the way, you got a football game where Tom Brady is trying to do something that he hasn't, had happen to him in 19 years, and that's lose 3 games in a row.
Yeah, he hasn't had, and plus he hasn't had a lot of success with the Giants.
Right.
That's still in his head. But Tampa Bay losing 2 straight has got to be a bit concerning. Bruce Arians talking about how his team keeps taking dumb penalties and making dumb plays.
Right.
You have to think that Tampa Bay will be better playing at home. But thing about the Giants, these games with Tampa Bay and New York, they're always close games.
Yeah. The funny thing, too, we also talked on Friday about the possibility of Dan Mullen being gone at Florida, and that happened over the weekend, too. So,
yeah, it's sad that you can that you can win 70+% of your games and be considered, expendable, especially with the amount of money they paid for him after he left Mississippi State.
Well, the other thing, too, is last year after that SEC championship game, which they lost, to Alabama in a very close game, they gave him a 3-year extension. So,
right. I mean, if you look, like you said on Friday, too, they don't have Kyle Trask anymore. They don't have Kyle Pitts. You're dealing with Emory Jones at quarterback,
right,
part of a timeshare, basically.
right.
The defense has been terrible.
Right.
I mean, they gave up, 42 points to Samford in the first half last week.
Right.
And I watched Samford lose to Furman this week. So, I mean, obviously, there's problems defensively.
Yeah.
But it's not all Dan Mullen's fault. You have to give them some. He has to be able to recruit and get some guys in there. You can't just cut a guy loose. Now, all these people that are going to go to Florida, what are they going to do? Are they going to think about recommitting? They're going to decommit from Florida and go somewhere else? Anything's possible. I mean, we don't even know who's going to be the coach there.
No, if it were me, and Scott Strickland, the athletic director, has not called me yet. Here's my phone, Scott, if you're listening. Call me.
He'll probably call you on Wednesday.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't waste any time. I would pick up the phone to Mario Cristobal at Oregon, because Mario Cristobal was at Miami,
right?
FIU, success at pretty much his stops. He interviewed for the USF job, which Charlie Strong got, and then went out and became the offensive coordinator for Willie Taggart. And when Willie left, he was named an interim coach, and then he was named the head coach. And he's had tremendous success in recruiting Southern California, and he still has great Florida ties. So I would go for Mario Cristobal, or I would go and see if I could get Lane Kiffin pried away from Ole Miss.
A lot of people are also saying that they might want to get Mark Stoops.
Yeah, well, Mark Stoops wouldn't be a bad. I mean, that's, he's the other Stoops.
Right, but I mean, he's had success turning around Kentucky. If you remember, Kentucky has been pretty much moribund since the Alabama era.
If you can win at Kentucky, you can win at Florida.
Yeah, definitely, because you can get a lot more talent because Florida's a bigger name.
Right. And
going to Lexington.
The funny thing was that Dan was making number 3 money in the SEC. So only Saban and Jimbo Fisher were making more money than Dan. So, it's a top 7 job, meaning they're, of all the pays in football, highest paid positions, Florida's in the top 7. So, I don't think you have any trouble on the money standpoint, even though they're giving, Dan, money to go away. He's got $12
That
million.
seems to be a common trend. Didn't they give Jim McElwain money to go away? They gave Ron Zook money to go away.
They've given everybody money.
Yeah, it's like Oprah. You get some money, and you get some money, and you get some money, so you have to leave.
Well, we'll let the Gators for another day, and let's move on. So, what do you got for us first? What do you want to talk about first tonight?
Well, we'll stick with college hoops because it's tournament season. All these mid-majors or mid-season or early season tournaments, basically,
right?
Where you've got a multitude of teams playing a multitude of games over a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
One of those tournaments is going to come to you from none other than, well, most of them come from Vegas, but that's not the point. We've got this one's coming from the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Whoa.
George Mason is going to take on Washington. Washington has not been the same team in the last couple of years under Mike Hopkins, and people are really wondering if he's the answer in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was the right-hand man for Jim Boeheim for so long, and everybody thought he was going to be the heir apparent there, but Boeheim won't go away.
Right.
So he went on somewhere else. And it paid off early on. They won the Pac-12 title. They had a run in the tournament. Last year they were terrible. They're not that great this year. George Mason, they're coming off a 3-point loss to James Madison Friday. It was their first loss of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But George Mason's a very good offensive team. They're 15th in effective field goal percentage, shooting 58.6% from the floor. That's including better than 41% from three-point land. They're 5-1 in their last 6 as a favorite and 4-1 in their last 5 overall. Just to show you how bad Washington shoots the ball, they're 352nd of 358 teams in Division I in effective field goal percentage at 36.8%. They're 334th in three-point shooting and 344th shooting inside the arc. They're 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 neutral site games as an underdog. They're 0-4 in their last 4 overall. They're way too foul happy. And it's going to be a long night for Mike Hopkins, but at least he'll get to play 2 more games because, you've got the consolation rounds.
Right.
But he'll enjoy the loser bracket because I'm taking George Mason minus 4.5.
Well, George Mason played Maryland and beat them at Maryland.
Yeah, George Mason, they've got a lot of talent. They're going to be a contender in the Atlantic 10. I mean,
for sure.
The Atlantic 10's had a good couple of weeks to start the season. You saw St. Bonaventure beat Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Marquette yesterday to win the Charleston Classic.
Uh-huh.
So there's some good teams coming out of that conference. They always get overlooked. I mean, you might get two teams in there normally, but it's because they're not considered a power conference where you don't get more teams in. They probably should, given the competition in that conference.
So what game do we want to look at next on the hardwood?
We'll take a look at Seton Hall taking on Ohio State.
Oof.
Ohio State burned me last week because I thought they would beat Xavier, and they didn't. So I'm going to go against them this week. Seton Hall's undefeated on the year. They're 17th in the nation in defensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm.
Mm-hmm.
And they're first in effective field goal percentage defense, opposing teams shooting 33.5% and just 13.3% from three-point range. Yeah. When you make 2 out of 15 from 3, you probably should stop shooting. Like we said, Ohio State coming off a 6-point loss on the road to Xavier last week. They're 0-5 in their last 5 after a straight-up loss. They're 1-4 in their last 5 overall. Seton Hall 9-1 against the spread in their last 10 neutral site games as a favorite. They're 4-1 in their last 5 overall against the spread. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a winning percentage above 600. Give the 2.5 points. Kevin Willard doing a good job in Seton Hall, and they'll probably be a force in the Big East.
It's funny that Seton Hall hasn't been that good since P.J. Carlesimo was there.
Right, with Rumeal Robinson and Andrew Gaze and that 89 team.
It's pretty amazing in those days. But, it'd be great to see Seton Hall go in and wax, Ohio State at this point in time. It would be good to see, them take a shot at Ohio State. And, to see a good old-fashioned Big East, Big Ten matchup, which meant something back in the day, not as much now as it does, then. But
Ohio State's dealing with some injuries. Justice Suing is questionable with a foot injury. Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't go, it's really going to affect the Buckeyes. They didn't look good against Xavier at all offensively.
Right.
And that's not an offensively gifted Musketeers team either that Travis Steele's working with.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on to hockey next.
Exactly. And we're going to go to the Gateway City, where the St. Louis Blues are hosting the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a matter of two teams heading in different directions. Vegas has won 5 of their last 6. St. Louis has lost 5 of their last 6. Vegas 9-0 in their last 9 on one-day rest. They're coming in off a solid win over the weekend. They're 6-0 in their last 6 against Western Conference teams. The Blues are 1-6 in their last 7 against teams with a winning percentage above .600. They're 1-4 in their last 5 against the West. Vegas has won 9 of the last 12 meetings between the teams and 4 of the last 5 in St. Louis. And most importantly, the goaltending, Robin Leonard 9-4-2 with a 228 goals against and a 928 save percentage in his 15 starts against the Blues. St. Louis, they just don't look right, and I don't know what it is. Craig Berube, we know he was a tough guy when he played in the league. He might have to do some tough love to the Blues to get him on track. Vegas is winning despite the fact that they seem to be minus half their roster. Max Pacioretty's still out. William Karlsson is hurt. Jonathan Marchessault has missed time. Mark Stone has missed time. They just plug somebody else in and they win games. And that's something that you can't overlook at any point. Surprisingly, Vegas is an underdog here. I'll take them as an underdog and win this game outright.
Yeah, George McPhee has put together a franchise there that, given the fact that they're only 5 years old, and they've been to the playoffs 3 out of the 5 years that they've been there. And the first year they were there, they were in the Stanley Cup Final.
Right.
So George has done an outstanding job, always does, of plugging in the right people as a general manager. And you gotta love what the Vegas is doing. And as you say, they are hot, and as we all know, yeah. And you always
the Blues haven't looked the same really since they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. I mean, they've kind of been since then.
True. But
they're resting on their laurels.
Yeah, you got to look at it and go, when you're hot in Vegas, you stay hot in Vegas. So let's not move from that standpoint. So let's move on to the next game. What's going on next?
Now you got the Blue Jackets heading to Buffalo to take on the Sabres. The Sabres played last night in New York City and lost to the Rangers 5-4, which is surprising that they actually scored 4 goals because they've been in a tailspin of late. Buffalo 5-21 in their last 26 when their opponent scores 2 goals or less. Of course, Columbus coming off a 4-2 loss to Vegas Saturday night where they had a 2-1 lead after 2 periods but gave up 3 third-period goals. Columbus 4-0 in their last 4 as a favorite. They're 4-1 in their last 5 against teams with a losing record. In games where Buffalo's given up 5 goals or more in their previous contest, the Sabres have lost 20 of their last 26 games in that situation. And finally, the Sabres playing their backup goaltender, Aaron Dell, who's 0-2-0 with a 431 goals against and an 861 save percentage in 3 appearances this season. You have to think the Sabres are really missing Craig Anderson, who they weren't really counting on to be their number 1 goaltender. But when you have him and Dustin Tokarski, because they don't want to call up Uli Pekka Luukkonen from the minors, they were relying on Anderson more than they wanted to. He got hurt. So now Tokarski played yesterday. Dell's supposed to be in net today. Columbus is a bit angry after letting that game slip away the other day. I look for them to win and cover on the road in this contest just because Buffalo, they started well. I don't know if they're starting to lapse back into the same style that we've seen in recent years. They got Ralph Kruger fired. They got Ted Nolan fired. They got Lindy Ruff fired. Got John Muckler fired. Insert name here of coach.
Right.
Dan Bilsma, Terry Murray.
Yeah, if you want to get fired, go to Columbus.
No, go to Buffalo.
Buffalo, I'm sorry.
But yeah, and Don Granato, he's done a good job in the early going. All of a sudden, Buffalo, they've given up at least 4 goals in 6 of their last 8 games. That's not conducive for winning. And Columbus, they have some weapons offensively. They can take advantage of a backup goaltender.
For sure, absolutely. Well, on the ice, where do we go next, Christopher?
Now we're going to go out to the West Coast, Silicon Valley, the Carolina Hurricanes, with their league best 14-2-0 record, taking on the Sharks. Carolina, surprisingly, 8-1 on the road this season. They're 6-0 in their last 6 on a one-day rest. They've won their last 4 road games, and they're facing a San Jose team that's only won 3 of their last 13 games against teams with a winning percentage above .600.
Wow.
The Sharks 1-4 in their last 5 overall. They're 1-4 in their last 5 overall against teams with a winning record. They're 2-6 against Metropolitan Division teams. You can't argue with Carolina. They're third in the league in goals for. They're second in the league in goals against. San Jose, you've had that whole issue with Evander Kane with supposedly, first he was a gambler, then he was had a fake vaccination card, then he was suspended. The Sharks, this isn't the team that you're used to seeing in previous years that had Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Joe Pavelski. Those guys all, no longer really a factor. Mm-hmm. And you have to think Carolina, they haven't really been stopped. And I don't think the Sharks are the team to do it.
No, and the thing is, the NHL Power Rankings last week had the Hurricanes at number 1.
I won't argue with that. I mean, they're on a roll. They're playing good hockey. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like I said, if you're third in the league in goals for and you're second in goals against, you're going to win a lot of hockey games. Mm-hmm. San Jose's a bit shaky in their own zone. Sometimes they go through extended cold streaks where they can't light the lamp, and that just bodes for a long night at the what's their arena now? They've changed the name. The SAP Center. San Jose is going to look like a bunch of saps as Carolina skates around them.
Oh man! So, are we headed to? We have one more hockey game, or do we?
No, we're headed to the NBA.
NBA, going to the hardwood. Okay, here we go.
Going to take the Brooklyn Nets on the road, -6.5 over Cleveland. In case you didn't know, Cleveland's a banged-up basketball team right now. Colin Sexton done for the year with a knee injury. Takes their leading scorer from last season out of the mix. Big man Evan Mobley is also out with an elbow injury. He's supposed to miss a month. C.D. Osman is doubtful for this contest, so you're really going to wonder who's going to step up. Are you going to get production from Darius Garland or Kevin Love or Lauri Markkanen, who's just coming back off the COVID list himself? Cleveland's lost 3 in a row. That includes a loss last week in Brooklyn, a 10-point loss, so they failed to cover as a 9.5-point underdog. Meanwhile, the Nets have won 2 in a row, 5 of 6 and 8 of 10 after that slow start to the year. They continue to get by despite missing Kyrie Irving. Joe Harris out still. But the Nets are 5-0 in their last 5 after an ATS loss. They were disappointing as far as not covering the line against Orlando in their last game. Cleveland 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 overall. They're 25th in the league in scoring offense. The Nets 6-2 in their last 8 meetings in Cleveland. You have to think the Cavaliers are going to end up falling by double digits because you can't defend Kevin Durant and James Harden. It's just, especially with such a shorthanded rotation as Cleveland has, when you're taking out 2 or 3 of your best players, it makes it that much more of an uphill climb. And the Cavaliers just don't have the weapons.
Well, one of the two of them is going to beat you. So
yeah, it's going to either Durant's going to go for 35 or Harden's going to get to the free throw line 800 times and knock down 780 of them.
Right.
And, you'll lose that way.
Absolutely. So, it's funny, too, because Cleveland, of course, has had kind of a schizophrenic way of playing this year, but there's been no consistency with the Cavaliers at all.
Yeah, they win. They're kind of like Charlotte, where they'll win 3 or 4 in a row, and then they'll lose 3 or 4, and right. You don't know. Those Jekyll and Hyde teams are tough to follow because you don't know what you're going to get on any given night. And
they'll play good teams great, and they'll play bad teams terrible.
Right, you'll get thumped by some scrub team.
Right, exactly.
They haven't played Houston yet, so.
Or the University of Akron, which is
right. Yeah, they haven't played the Zips.
So maybe that's what they're waiting for. So where do we go next, boss?
Well, we just talked about the Charlotte Hornets. They're on the road in the Southeast Division clash right there in the nation's capital as they take on the Wizards. Mm-hmm. Washington 7-1 at home this season, while Charlotte's 4-6 on the road. Charlotte playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. They beat the Pacers on Friday after they nearly let a 25-point lead slip away. Then they went on the road and lost to Atlanta. That snapped their 5-game win streak. The Hornets 7-20 in their last 27 as a road underdog. They're 1-4 in their last 5 after an ATS loss. They're 1-6 in their last 7 on the road. Washington, I have to give them credit. They didn't play defense last year under Scott Brooks. All of a sudden, Wes Unseld Jr.'s in there, and they've actually decided that they're going to play in their own end. Some of that could be the fact they got Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell in that trade that was addition by subtraction by getting rid of Russell Westbrook.
Right.
Bradley Beal is back. The Wizards 4-0 in their last 4 at home. They're 5-1 in their last 6 at home against teams with a losing record.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take Washington -4 as they avenge that loss in Charlotte last week.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the key, too, something to remember is that, with Wes Unseld Jr., he really, toiled as an assistant coach as someone who, promoted defense. I mean, defense was Wes Unseld Jr.'s, tour de force. And it's paying off so far in Washington. And I think, sometimes you trade a big name, you get some guys in, and you say, they're not big names, but they're certainly, doing what they need to do. And it's always good to have a healthy Bradley Beal for sure.
Right, and they're guys that can actually, play on both ends. Harold's a former sixth man of the year. Kuzma can crash the glass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are things that they didn't do last season. Now you've lengthened your bench. You still don't have Rui Hachimura playing yet.
Right.
Thomas Bryant is due back next month.
Mm-hmm.
That Wizards rotation is going to get very deep, and it's going to make it very difficult for other teams to try and defend them because you can just shuttle guys in and out.
Right, and that in the NBA, as you know, especially in the East, if you can just keep that rotation going, you can tire some of these other teams out. So that's
right. And in the East, you can finish below 500 and still be a 4 seed. So hey,
That's true. So what's up next, boss?
Now we have the Phoenix Suns, who bring their 12-game win streak with them on the road to San Antonio. We've talked about San Antonio a couple times now.
Those Spurs aren't sharp. I can tell you that right now.
I don't know if I'd call them sharp. They're 4-11 on the year.
As I said, they aren't sharp.
Oh, they aren't sharp. Yes, that's true. They're 1-9 against Western Conference teams. They're just 2-4 at home, while the Suns are 5-1 on the road. Now, sure, Phoenix played last night, but they didn't have to play their starters very long because they whipped Denver by 29 points. The Spurs, 23rd in the league in scoring defense, they're giving up 109.7 points a game, and that's not good when you're facing a Suns team that's 4th in the league in scoring offense.
Right.
Greg Popovich, I still don't understand. Has he given up? Has he lost his mind? They're trying to play a tempo that's not really the style that fits their personnel. They're 4th in the league in pace right now at 101.2 possessions a game. It doesn't make sense. For all those years when the Spurs were winning titles or going deep in the playoffs, they were in the bottom half of the league in tempo. They wore teams down. They made you work for 20, 22 seconds on every possession.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what they're doing now. They're trying to run and gun, and it doesn't work. Sure, Keldon Johnson, DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and all those guys are looking like they're trying to do something different. It's not going to work with Popovich's coach. Popovich is focused on one thing, defense. They're not playing it. Phoenix is an offensive tour de force when you've got DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges, and all those guys out there, Devin Booker. They're 8th in offensive rating, and Spurs are 25th. How it's only a 5.5-point line, I'm guessing, is solely based on the fact that Phoenix played yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Phoenix should win this one by double digits, considering we just saw them destroy a pretty good Denver team.
Yeah. And look, with Phoenix's situation, again, they get on you fast and they get on you all game long. There's no let up on Phoenix.
Yeah, it's almost like Phoenix has gone back to the 7 seconds or less era with Mike D'Antoni because, like I said, they're right behind San Antonio when it comes to tempo. They're 5th in the league with 101 possessions. But the difference is Phoenix has shooters.
Yeah, exactly. Paul Gasol is no longer with the Spurs. So anyway, fantastic situation they have in Phoenix. They got good weather and a decent basketball team. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's a scary thought that they have a good basketball team because you get for a long stretch they weren't very good, and now.
Yeah, you had to
figure something out all of a sudden.
Yeah, for sure. So it's one of those things that we do what we can do, right?
Exactly.
So next up, we move from the hardwood.
Right, we're going to talk about Monday Night Football. You talked about it earlier with
football. Yeah.
Tom Brady trying to avoid a 3-game losing streak. Tampa Bay's favored by 11 points in this game. And, yeah, I get the Giants aren't good. That's fine. But if you look, 5 of the last 6 meetings between these teams have been decided by 7 points or less. The last 4 have been decided by a total of 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants are getting healthy. They're supposed to have Saquon Barkley back. They're supposed to have Sterling Shepard potentially in the mix. Evan Engram is back. Kadarius Toney's supposed to play. Kenny Golladay is supposed to be in the mix. They're actually going to have offensive weapons for once.
Mm-hmm.
It's something. The last time all these guys played was Week 4 against the Saints, and we all remember the Giants racked up 485 yards and beat New Orleans in overtime.
Right.
I'm not telling you Tampa Bay is going to lose this game. I'm telling you that this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. The Giants aren't a horrible defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants are 6-1 in their last 7 in November against the spread, and they've covered 21 of their last 27 on the road, not to mention 20 of their last 26 on the road as an underdog. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay's 4-10-1 against the spread in their last 15 in November. They're 2-5 in their last 7 as a favorite. And on Monday nights, prime time is there. The Bucs don't always show up. They're 3-7-2 against the spread in their last dozen on Monday night, and 1-4 against their last 5 against the NFC. Sure, Brady's gonna put up his yards. The Bucs are gonna score some points, but the Giants are gonna score some points themselves, and this game is gonna end up probably being a 1-score game. And if it's a 1-score game, guess what? If you're getting 11 points and you only lose by 7, you win.
You're right. The thing too is, ironically, for some reason, Tampa Bay and New York play each other almost every year.
Exactly.
And so, it's just quirk in the schedule where they get these two teams. So you're right. They don't. And it doesn't matter how bad either of them are. I mean, even when the Giants were good and Tampa Bay was bad, they would play close games. So
right. Even when Jameis Winston was quarterback and trying to give everybody interceptions, the games were still close.
Jameis is just he's a given kind of guy. That's all. I mean, he wants to make sure everybody has something to write home about. But
I mean, if you look, we saw what happened last week. Tampa Bay, they went into Washington and they were favored by double figures and they lost the game outright.
Yeah, and that one had one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and that is a 10-minute drive. In college football, you may see that, but it's seldom, if ever, happens in a National Football League.
It's funny you should mention that because yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, the 49ers took the opening kickoff against the Jaguars and ran 20 plays, and they had the ball for almost 13 and a half minutes.
I did not see that.
And they only kicked a field goal on the drive.
Oh, well,
But yeah, they chewed up almost the entire first quarter. Just, methodically going down the field. And obviously Jacksonville ended up getting thrashed in that game. Probably because of the fact that their defense couldn't get off the field early.
Right.
But, I mean, when you give up a drive that was 13-plus minutes, what are you supposed to do?
Basically just go back, especially if they're, playing Jacksonville, you just don't know what to do. I mean, you want to run on them, and you go, I can run on them. Then you pass. I can pass on them too. So, but that's 13 minutes. Wow, that's an amazing amount of time. Woof. So, I guess it's time for 2 for the money, huh?
Exactly, it is. And we've got 2 of them up there for you today. We're going to go with the Nets -6 over Cleveland. And George Mason, like we said, -4.5 over Washington. Mm-hmm. Until Mike Hopkins can find a way to find some talent to play on up there in Seattle, and it hasn't been the same in the last couple of years. They're going to be horrible in the Pac-12. Probably the saving grace for them in the Pac-12 is that Cal sucks. And that's probably an understatement considering we watched Cal lose their opener to UC San Diego.
Right.
But that's a story for another time. The other one, like I said, Carolina, they're 14-2-0 on the season. They're 8-1 on the road. San Jose is inconsistent at best, mediocre at most of the time. Carolina should win this one comfortably on the road. And Phoenix over San Antonio, we just talked about how the Spurs, either they have to have a coaching change or they have to have a system change. Or both, because what they're doing right now, trying to run and gun with everybody, isn't working. It's not Popovich's style. You have to wonder if this is the end of the road for one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NBA.
I would think, honestly, in Pop's case, that if he has a bad season, best you go out on a bad season than being run out of town by the by the front office, because you can only, you have to be competitive. And surprising, it's almost even difficult to say that San Antonio is not even competitive anymore.
Yeah, a lot of nights they're just getting drubbed because of the fact that they try to run and gun, they turn it over a lot, or they brick a lot of shots. I mean, you can't play that style if you can't crash the glass and you can't play defense, and that's basically where we are with San Antonio. And it's I won't say disappointing because of the fact that I've been a Utah Jazz fan since back when they were Midwest Division rivals when David Robinson first came in the league and everything else. And it always irritated me when, we'd win 56 games and not win the division because San Antonio would win 57 because they got to play Dallas the last game of the season. But, I have a lot of respect for what Popovich has done in his career. And the way this team is playing is not what you're used to seeing.
No, and he can't be pleased with it either. So we went 2 for the money. Time to go for 4 for the show.
Right. And before we do that, Joan, you're right. The Giants aren't a great team, but they really aren't all that bad. That's why I'm taking them tonight with the points, just because of the fact that, hey, we've seen stranger things happen in this league. Just look at yesterday where we watched the Steelers score 17 points in a minute and a half to completely turn that game around before losing to the Chargers. But back to the four teams for tonight. I'm going to take Utah -10 over Memphis. Utah's on a roll again. We watched them roll. Speaking of rolling, we watched them roll Philadelphia and Toronto last week. They beat Sacramento over the weekend on the road. And that led to the end of the Luke Walton era in Sacramento, which takes us to, hey, you got to feel good for Alvin Gentry. He got fired from New Orleans. He took on the job as an assistant in Sacramento, and now he's right back behind the bench as the head coach for the Kings because, hey, somebody's got to coach that team.
That's right.
It's his 6th stop in the league. We wish him success.
Well,
Sacramento hasn't been in the playoffs in 15 years. I don't know if they'll get there this year either. But at least they realized the change needed to be made and made it early in the season. Elsewhere, we got LSU -6 at home at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center over Belmont. Belmont is a good team. Don't get me wrong. They brought back their entire starting lineup from a season ago. But you're playing in Baton Rouge against a Will Wade coach team that has had a ton of success in recent years, and they don't lose often at home. And I think that, the way LSU has played early on this season, they should be able to cover the line over Belmont. Then we've got Creighton, -5.5 over Southern Illinois. The Salukis, another one of those teams that are a mid-major that can lurk under the radar and might surprise somebody. Creighton's played well in the early going this season. They beat Nebraska in Lincoln. And I think that they'll pull this one out as well. And then we've got on the NHL, we've got Colorado. I'm going to take them with the puck line -1.5 over Ottawa. Ottawa coming back from an extended break due to a COVID outbreak on the team. They haven't played in over a week. They weren't playing well before the break. They're going to be rusty. We watched Colorado pile up 7 goals on Seattle Friday night in that game that we told you would go over, and the Avalanche did it by themselves. So look for that to be the case here as Ottawa. It's going to take them a little bit to get their feet back under them after that extended layoff.
Okay, so we've gone 2 for the money. We've gone 4 for the show. And now it's time to go crazy, folks. Here's your opportunity to go big time. And what do you got for us on the big line?
Go crazy. Isn't that what Russ Hodges said
right.
when Bobby Johnson homered?
Right. And then, of course, when Jack Buck did it, when Ozzie Smith hit a home run.
Yes, the Ozzie Smith homer off Tom Niedenfuhr.
Right. So,
I remember that.
Go crazy, folks. Go crazy.
Fortunately, Jack Buck doesn't have to listen to Joe Buck commentate.
Right. Oh, well.
But anyway, like we said, we've got 10 different games here. And like we always tell you when we do these, You don't have to pick them all. You don't have to pick the ones that we have up top. You can mix and match them however you want. Whatever works for you. If there's somebody that we didn't put on here that you think should be on here, that's fine too. That's what makes it entertaining.
Right.
But I've got in the NBA, we've got the Wizards -4 over Charlotte, like we talked about. I'm going to take New Orleans at home, getting 3.5 points over Minnesota because you just can't trust the Timberwolves outside of Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. They've been inconsistent at best, and D'Angelo Russell just hasn't found himself yet. On the ice, we'll take Vegas, like we said, as a surprising underdog on the road against the St. Louis team that's been slumping of late. And we'll take Winnipeg at home, where they're 7-1-1 over Pittsburgh at -120. In college hoops, we're going to take Houston, who has won 28 in a row at home. This one's not at home. It's going to be part of the Maui Invitational coming to you live from the Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas. You figure it out.
Which is only 3,000 miles from Maui.
Exactly. -10 over Butler. Lavelle Jordan's team just has not looked the same. They are dealing with it. Bryce Nazi injured his shoulder, tore a labrum in the game against Michigan State. That's going to impact their depth. And Houston plays suffocating defense. The other college basketball game, Rutgers. That's right, Rutgers. There's actually another school in New Jersey.
Right.
Everybody talks about Princeton, Seton Hall. We'll talk about Rutgers. They're given 19 points, but they're playing a Lafayette team that is winless on the season and was just thumped thoroughly. Again, Ron Harper Jr. looking for a big game here from him. And on the gridiron, like I said, we're taking the Giants +11 over Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay should win the game, but it's going to be one of those, another one of those close games like this, they've played repeatedly. I also don't think that this game gets to the 49.5 point total. I think we're looking at something like 27-20 or 24-20, something like that. Because Tampa Bay, let's face it, they haven't been lighting up the scoreboard of late. They only scored 19 points against Washington, and Washington was the worst defense in the league. One more college game, UTEP. We talked about them last week when we said they were going to beat Pacific on the road, which they did. They play UC Riverside this time. They're favored by 4 points. UTEP, at least with a win, finally over a team that's not from the state of New Mexico. And finally, Boston, -11. The Celtics over the Rockets, who are 0-10 on the road. They're 1-14 on the season. Their lone win was over Oklahoma City, who then they promptly lost to by double digits. The Rockets are a train wreck. Kevin Porter probably won't play again. John Wall is happy just collecting his money, sitting out in the crowd.
Right. He looks good. Sure.
And we said, the Celtics have won 3 straight. We talked about how they were going to handle the Lakers Friday night. We warned you that the Lakers were in trouble. And they thumped Los Angeles by, 22, 23 points.
Yeah, 22, 23.
They should have no problem against a Houston team that can't shoot. Mm-hmm. They can't play defense. And I guess the other thing you can say is they have decent uniforms.
But that's true. The other thing is, thank goodness they're not playing the University of Houston, which you just talked about in the Maui Classic, because they may be a better team against them.
I think if I was setting a line, I'd probably set the Cougars -6 over the Rockets. Just,
It'd be
because Kelvin Sampson's team plays good defense, and the Rockets don't.
That's for sure. Well, folks, we hope that you've had a lot of fun here today. We've enjoyed being with you, Chris and I. Be sure you can watch us, all over the place. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us, of course, on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So mark it in your calendar, 1:30 every day, to come and join Chris and me, because Chris has all kinds of interesting things to say, and I just keep the trains running on time.
Somebody's got to move the chains.
Somebody's got to move the chains. So I'm your possession receiver. So anyway, have a great day. Thanks for joining us. We will see you tomorrow. And, good luck to all of you when it comes to betting on parlays, because we gave you all the good information. Now take it and use it. Take care.
Come back and let us know how it panned out for you, or, we can commiserate together if things didn't go the way we thought.
That's
Hopefully
right.
That's not the case. I mean, we had a good week last week, so we're hoping that rolls over this week.
All right. Because misery loves company, but so does success. Take care, everybody. Be well.